Mr. Gorbachev,
We choose to go to the moon.
down this
We shall
wall.
never surrender.
Hope, there's joy, there's purpose, there's meaning.
So as I said a few weeks ago, we started this series. We're about halfway through Losing Your Marbles, this series. And while we're talking to parents and while we're talking about parenting, I want to be really clear, as I have been hopefully over the last couple weeks, this series isn't just about parenting, and it's not a series just for parents. This series is quite honestly for all of us. It's for anyone who's old enough and willing enough to make a difference, to make an impact, to leave an imprint on the life of a child. So I believe that with all my heart that this series is for every single one of us in this room. And we said that the goal for this series is to share 6 principles that will help you and I as we're present in the lives of the next generation. And so we kind of started again 2 weeks ago. We talked about the overview, or kind of the main idea, the big idea for this entire series when we talked about time. And we said that time is incredibly powerful. And because you and I only have but so much time, what you and I need more than anything is wisdom. Wisdom as we make decisions as to what to do or what not to do with the time that we have left, specifically the time that we have left with the kids in our lives. And so 2 weeks ago, as we kind of launched into this series, we looked at a prayer that a man named Moses prayed in the Old Testament. Moses, again, a man who many of us, if not all of us, have heard of to varying degrees or another, prayed a simple prayer in the book of Psalms. He said, "Teach us to number our days." And he was meaning, teach us, teach me, and teach the people of Israel, the nation of Israel that I'm in charge of leading. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. That in order to get the wisdom that he needed, that he believed his people needed, he said, God, I believe that that will happen. We will get that if you teach us to number our days. And so as a practical way of trying to learn myself and to hopefully help you number your days, I encouraged everyone that's a parent to get a jar similar to one of these jars and fill it full of marbles. You'd need to do some calculations. I told you, if you weren't here a couple weeks ago, I shared that 936 weeks is significant because 936 weeks is the estimated number of weeks between birth and high school graduation, which is a sobering reality for those of us that are parents, especially parents with young kids. We're thinking, wow, that's not really a lot of weeks remaining. So I encourage you to do some calculations to figure out how many, obviously how many children you have in your home, and get a jar representative of each child in your home to do some calculations and figure out with each child how many weeks you have left. And then to get into the routine, to get into the rhythm, at the end of each week to take a marble out. Because when you see how much time you have left, it will help you become more intentional with the time that you have left. And over time, you will gain wisdom as you make decisions as to what to do and, again, what not to do with the time that you have. And so we shared the first principle 2 weeks ago, that it takes time over time to make a history worth repeating. And this is important, the history worth repeating part, because every single one of us, whether we're parents or whether we're adults in the lives of kids, we're all making history. The question is it a history worth writing? Is it a history worth talking about? Is it a history worth repeating? Because what you instill and impart in your kids is what one day they will instill and impart in their kids. And so it goes from generation to generation to generation to generation. And so it's essential that we are mindful of the history that we're creating in and for the life of our kids. And so last week we talked about what kids need over time. And we said that it's really essential, it's really obvious, it's really easy to understand and accept. It's love. And the principle last week was love over time reflects worth. That you and I, as parents, as adults who are present in the lives of the next generation, we need to prove our love over time. And we talked about how you do that it's important and critical over time that you and I as parents, you and I as adults in the lives of our kids, and we need to be present. We need to be present in their lives in the predictable times and in the random times in life. And that over time, we have to be intentional about getting to know and re-know and rediscover who our kids are. That kids are changing, they're evolving, that you can't talk to and treat your kid the way you did when they were 2, when they're 15. That kids are changing, and so we need to discover and rediscover who they are, and we need to be intentional about that. Continually asking questions, continually getting into their business so we can know their business so we know who they are and what they're becoming. And as we discover and as we rediscover who they are and what they're into and what their heart beats for, as we find out those things, it's essential that we never run away. that we never break off the relationship, that we never starve them for a relationship with us. No matter how good it is, no matter how bad it is, no matter how ugly things get, we need to continually prove that we're not going anywhere. And as we love them that way over time, we reflect worth into their lives. And as we reflect worth into their lives, our children will begin to love themselves in a healthy way because we've reflected that they have worth. And it's a worth that isn't contingent upon what they do or how well they do what they do. Their worth is found in simply who they are. And so it's incredibly important that we love them, that we prove it over time. But that doesn't mean that saying I love you isn't important. In fact, it's the opposite. Saying I love you is crucial. It's critical. It's powerful. Sometimes I think we forget just how powerful those words are because there's something in you and there's something in me. There's a tendency in all of us to underestimate the weight of our words. Isn't that true? There's something in you and there's something in me that we just underestimate. We devalue or undervalue the weight of our words. That when we look at the people in our lives, when we look at the kids, we just fail sometimes to think how deeply our words impact the people that we say we love and care about the most. Words are powerful, so much so that everything came from words. That in the beginning, God created, and the way he created was with the use of words. There was nothing, and then in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1, the beginning of all the scriptures records this. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then he spoke, and here's what he said, let there be light. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 3, God spoke. He said, let there be light, and he turned the lights on so that mankind could see all that he had created. And it shouldn't surprise us that words have helped us to see things ever since. That over time, words help you discover and rediscover the things. And God didn't create the power of words simply for himself, for his use to create things. God gave us and handed over to us the power of words. He imparted that to us. He gave Adam creative control to name things and to define things and give things meaning and to shape the perceptions of everything that God had created. And so God shared with mankind this incredible ability to give meaning and to use and leverage the power of words that he showed us throughout his creation. And so as he did that, he gives us this unbelievable opportunity, this incredible responsibility, but it's one, I believe, that we take so easily for granted because, again, there's this thing in you and there's this thing in me to devalue or underestimate the weight of our words. But words that God has shown us through creation, and we've seen it in your life and I've seen it in mine, words are powerful. And when the words we use affect how we influence others to see, and more importantly, they impact what we influence others to see. That the words that you give a child, the words that you give a teenager influence and affect what they see and how they see. This is so significant. That the words that you choose to give a child, the words that you choose as an adult or as a parent to give your teenager, shape what they see and how they see. Sometimes we devalue when we underestimate the weight of our words, but we have to be mindful. We have to make sure that the words we use, the words we give our kids, the words we give our teenagers, our students, the ones we care about the most, we have to make sure they count. We have to be mindful when it comes to the words we use. So much so that I believe that's why James, who was the brother of Jesus, encouraged us, challenged us to be mindful. He said it this way in the book of James, chapter 3, verse 3. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, get this, we can turn the whole animal. But simply by putting a little bit in the mouth of a horse, you can turn and move the whole animal. He goes on, or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are moved by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. So James uses these two different illustrations to kind of make his point. And he says, likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. And so the words that you give a teenager, the words you give a child this week matter. And so James, in these words, he gives us the principle. He says that even though words are a small thing, they have tremendous, incredible, powerful influence. And in his words, James gives us the principle for this week, that words over time can impact someone's direction. Words over time can impact someone's direction. So the words that you and I choose to give our children and give the teenagers in our lives this week matter because they can impact and shape the direction their lives take. The words that you choose to give your kids, the words you choose to give your teenagers, impact the direction their lives take. It shapes the way they see the world. The words you give them shape the way they see the world, the way they see themselves, the way they see other people, the way they see God. Words over time can impact someone's direction in a powerful way. You can help them and give them the ability to see with your words things that they can't see yet. That you can open their eyes to things that they haven't yet discovered. It's powerful. And when you don't know something, and maybe this has occurred to you, when you don't know something, you're usually the last to find out that you don't know, right? You don't know, you just don't know that you don't know. And in the same way, a kid doesn't know the words that they need to hear from their parents. A kid doesn't know the words they need to hear from adults, but you have an incredible opportunity to give them words that will help them in ways they have no idea they need help in. And so words matter. And not only do words matter, but context matters. Context matters when it comes to words. Many of you know that I have a 5-month-old son named Parker. And like me, he's a ginger, which is, take that for what it's worth. So he's this little, beautiful little ginger baby. It skips a generation in our family. But anyway, he's beautiful. And so when at night, when I put him to bed, or when he goes to bed, I hug him and I hold him and I talk to him and I kiss him and I say, "I love you, my little gingerbread man." I say that to him. It's cute, right? I think so. So anyways, that's what I do. But someday down the road, when he's in grade 11 and playing basketball in high school, and I'm at the gymnasium, I'm just claiming that he's going to play basketball someday when he's in grade. But I'm at the basketball game, and I yell from the stands, "I love you, my little gingerbread man." Chances are I'm going to get some funny looks from an angry gingerbread man, right? Like, it's probably just not going to go well. It's not because what I'm saying isn't true. It's not because I don't mean it. It's not because he isn't cute or he's not a little gingerbread. It has nothing to do with that. It's just in that context, those words don't work. And the same is true as we're parents and as parenting, and the same is true as we're present in the lives of kids and the kids in our lives, whether you're a grandparent, whether you're a volunteer in their lives, whether you're a coach, whether you're a teacher, it doesn't matter. The words that you give a kid in elementary school are different than the words that you'd give a kid in middle school. And the words you give a kid that's in preschool are different than the words you're going to give them when they're in high school, right? The words that you give a kid to a 5th grader are different than the words that you're going to give a kid to, that's in grade 11. They're just different because context matters. And so what that means is, as adults, as parents, we're going to continually have to learn a new language because there are new words for every season of life. There just are. They're just new words for every season of life. So as parents, as adults who are present in the lives of the next generation, we're going to continually have to learn a new language, which sounds like a lot of fun. And those of you that are teachers, you know this to be true. And if you've been teaching for any length of time, you've seen that words don't just change as kids get older, words just change over time. Because culture changes, and with that comes new words, right? I mean, every time a new movie comes out, a new Netflix series starts, every time a new YouTuber starts a channel, every time there's a new, popular band, there are new words that trickle into our culture, and then they trickle down into our conversations. So we're continually, as adults and as parents, we're continually living lives not knowing all the words that our kids use. And so we continually have to be mindful and learn a new language. So you will always need to expand your vocabulary. And this isn't just so you're hip. This isn't just so that you're the cool parent that you want to be and you want your house to be the one that all the kids come over like, "Man, your parents are so cool." It's not just to be hip and it's not just to be relevant. It's so much bigger, it's so much more important, and it's so much more profound than that. The reason that you will always need to expand your vocabulary is because your role as a parent is to help your child see the things that they can't see yet. And the words that you give them shape the way they see the world. You need to expand your vocabulary because the words you give your kids shape the way they see themselves. It shapes the way they see God. And again, they make decisions based on what they see, and those decisions impact the direction their lives will take. So you will always need to expand your vocabulary. You need to learn a deeper vocabulary so you can help them reason. And in other words, no pun intended, you need words to think. Do you know that? You need words to think, which is why the military, their armed forces qualification test, they weight verbal scores to math scores 2-1. Verbal to math, 2-1. I was shocked by that. The EQAO, which is our provincial standardized testing, or evil questions attacking Ontario, as the kids call it, right? Our provincial standardized testing is weighted towards verbal communication over math 2-1. There are 6 components of the EQAO, and 4 of them have to do with language and verbal skills, 2-1. Both the military and their education system are acting on the belief that the greater your variety of words, the greater your scope of thinking. So the words that you give a child, your ability to expand your vocabulary and in turn help them expand their vocabulary helps them in their ability to reason. And because of their ability to reason, it sets them on a course and opens up the direction or potential for the direction of their lives to take. If you want your kid to be a problem solver, if you want your kid to be an innovator, if you want to help them succeed in life, you need to give them words over time. And you need to expand your vocabulary so that you can help expand their vocabulary. Because not only does it impact their ability to reason impacts the direction their life can take. So you need to learn a deeper vocabulary. And you need to learn an emotional language so you can help them express what they feel. For our music teams, or how efficient can a musician be with only 2 notes? Or a chef with only 3 ingredients, or a mechanic with 1 tool? The same is true for expressing yourself emotionally. You need to develop a healthy emotional language so you can instill and impart that on your kids, because it's essential for their development and it's essential for their emotional well-being. As I've shared with you, I've been pastoring now almost 20 years, and I've walked alongside so many different people through so many different circumstances, and I think I've heard it all. And as I've talked to couples specifically that are going through troubles in their marriage, there are so many adults who don't know how to express themselves emotionally or with words. Why? Because they never learned the words when they were kids. They never learned as kids how to express themselves emotionally, and as a result, it's crippled their relationships as an adult. So the emotional language you impart on your kids will impact every future relationship they will ever have. So you need to learn an emotional language so you can help them express how they feel. And you need to learn a faith language to help them believe. Everything you know about God, everything that you believe about God, you know through words, which might be a little bit of hyperbole, but maybe. Because our theology is expressed in words. You've never seen grace. You've never seen mercy. You've never seen salvation, sanctification, justification, regeneration. You've never seen kenosis. Those are big words. You should look them up. They're important. You've never seen those things, but you've maybe, hopefully, experienced them. But we need to impart and we need to give the kids in our lives and the teenagers in our lives theological words, because those words help them understand what they hopefully will experience, and it will help them understand the nature and the essence of who God is. The words that you give your children spiritually matter, because it shapes the way that they see God. Everything from your analogies to your adjectives, as you ask questions and as you listen to their questions, as you share and as you communicate and talk about your experiences with God. Those words that you give your kids about spiritual things, about theological things, shape the way they see God and impact the direction that they will hopefully take towards God. The words you give kids, they matter. And it's so easy to take them for granted. It's so easy to lose sight and to just think they're just overused, or it's just this, or words are just this thing. We get caught up and we just say them so easily and so rapidly that we fail to make them count. Did you know that on average, this is average, on average, people say 10,123 words a day? On average. I'm a little bit more than that. Couldn't believe that, right? 10,123 words a day. Now, those of you that are parents of teenagers, the words that you hear on a daily basis greatly reduce the average, right? You hear maybe, yep, nope, huh, I'm hungry, right? The words that you get greatly reduce this average. But 10,123 words, that's a lot of words. And out of those 10,123 words, some count more than others. And those are the words, as parents and as adults, those are the words that we need to count and make sure count. They're the words you give your child when they ask you a question that you weren't expecting them to ask you. It's the words you give your child when they go through a monumental season of life or they go through, this significant milestone in their life. It's the words you give them in that moment. It's the words you give them when they bring up a situation or an experience you had no idea they were or had gone through. It's the words you give your kid when they're going through and suffering the consequence of a poor decision that they've made. It's the words you give your kid maybe just over breakfast, maybe while you're waiting for the movie to start or right before, school as you're heading there in the car. It's the words you give your kids in those moments. And so as we close today, as we're talking about the power of words, I want to quickly give you 5 ways to hopefully make sure that you and I make the words that we have in the lives of our kids, in the lives of our teenagers, our students, to make sure those 10,123, maybe they won't all count, but the ones that we need to make count, 5 things to help you make sure that they do. Number 1, write it out. Sometimes parents, we get tongue-tied. Our kids bring up something, they ask something, they're going through something, and we have no idea what to say, right? If that hasn't happened to you, newsflash, it will. So my encouragement is to write it out. Write the words down on a piece of paper and wrestle with them. Is that really what I want to say? And no, that doesn't come out right. Are my words communicating what I really desperately want to communicate in this moment? Write it out. Change the words, read it over. Make sure what you want to say says what you want to say before you say it. Because once you say them, you can't get them back, right? And I found this in my life. As many of you know, as I've talked about, I have a 13-year-old daughter, Emma, who doesn't live with us every day. In fact, she's only with us for a couple days a month. And so over the last 8 years, I've gotten into the rhythm and the routine of texting her every morning at 8 o'clock and every evening at 8 o'clock. Because I want to be consistently present in her life. And even though I can't be present physically, I want her to know that I'm present mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so every morning I get my phone out as I'm, and this is pre-coffee, especially at 8 o'clock. I'm like, man, barely awake. And I know the day's half over, some of you are thinking, but I'm texting Emma and I'm like, is that what I want to say? And then I go back and I delete it, or I cut that line, or I move that line. I'm like, because I want to make sure, because I've only got one moment to make these words count, I want to make sure that they say exactly what I want them to say. And so get in the rhythm, get in the routine of just writing it out, because then you'll be sure you say exactly what you wanted to say. The second one, make it specific. And you know this one's easy. The words that matter most to all of us, regardless of our age, are the words that were specifically created just for us, right? It's the words that someone said about you and for you, and you know they're specific for you. So point out specific moments. Point out specific experiences or specific gifts or specific things that you see in your kids. Because we love that, right? What kids want is exactly what all of us, regardless of our age, want. We want people like you to shine the light on specific things about us that make us uniquely who we are. So point out those specific things. And I've given you a little cheat sheet. So if you're people that like notes, or if you want to take a quick picture of the screen, I'll get out of the way for you. But here it is. Here's some great phrases to start with. I remember when. I start a sentence off with, I've noticed, or I hope you know. I'm really glad that. Or I've been thinking about, or thinking that. And maybe you could just get in the rhythm, get in the routine of writing some small notes, just 2 or 3 sentences that start with 1 or 2 of these phrases. And if you're a parent, maybe you put them in the kid's lunch bag, or you put them in their gym bag, or you put them on their end table by their bed. And you just get in the rhythm and the routine of communicating love and communicating worth through some of these ideas as you make it specifically about them. Or if you're a coach, if you're a teacher, if you serve in Bridge Kids, or if you serve in our Remix student ministry, every time you see the kids in those circles of influence that you have, you make specific statements starting with 1 or 2 of these phrases to point out to them that they matter to you, and you see specific things in them, and you reflect that to them over time. Then, be careful what little ears hear. Be careful what little ears hear. And to all my maritime friends, I'm not just talking about the bleep words, okay? Those, you got to bleep those. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the words that you say about them in their presence. I think sometimes we don't realize the weight of our words, and we say things about them in their presence that are crippling. And we have no idea. We've just said words that will echo in their mind and their heart for a lifetime. over the years in student ministry and just being in church, I've heard parents say the most hurtful things. It wasn't that they may not have been true. They might have thought they were just being funny. They might have been frustrated and were just venting to a friend, but there were little ears that heard what was said, and those words have echoed and continue to echo for a lifetime. Oh, she's got her mother's memory, right? Hopefully he'll pass this year. Third time's a charm. I heard one parent say this one time, I hope she marries someone rich. And I'm thinking to myself, she heard that. And those words echo for a lifetime. They never go away. And you as a parent, you as an adult who is present in their lives, you should be their greatest champion, not their greatest critic. Because what you say is powerful and it will never stop echoing in their heart and in their mind. As I shared with you a couple weeks ago, I've been talking to a lot of different people as I've been preparing for this series. A lot of people who have way more wisdom and way more experience than I do, and just kind of taken everything that I've heard and thrown it all into the blender, and I'm just kind of sharing with you the end result through this series. And in talking to one person specifically about these ideas, he said, that is so true. And he went on to share a story with me from his experience, from his past. And he said he would be more than happy with me for me to share it with you this morning. But it was painful to hear him tell this story. This was a man who's older than I am, who has way more experience, has accomplished way more in his life. But he told me about a time in his childhood where he stood in front of a room and was writing on a chalkboard and he misspelled a word. And he overheard his mother say to some other people in the room, "That's my boy." And in that moment, he saw himself, as he put it, as dumb. And those words that he heard in that moment years and years and years ago have echoed for decades in his heart and in his mind, to the degree that he for years has seen himself as someone who is dumb. And because of the way he sees himself from what he's heard, has affected the way he sees himself, and decisions or opportunities that came across his way over the course of his life, he wasn't sure if he should take them or could actually accomplish in them because he saw himself as dumb because of what he heard. Not a day ago, not a week ago or a month ago, but years and years and years ago. Your words matter. And it's crucial that you're careful what little ears hear so that you make sure you communicate what you would really want your child to have echo in their heart and in their mind for the rest of their life. And remember the basics. And this is probably the easiest thing, and a little bit contrary to everything else, in some ways, everything else that I've shared with you to this point. These are the words that kids just need to hear. They're the words and phrases that are timeless, that you need to say over and over and over again. You don't need to change them for age and stage. These are just the words that every kid and every teenager needs to hear time and time and time again. And as a parent, when you think you've said them too much, you need to say them some more, because you can never say these words too much. And I've given you a little bit of a list, again, just for people who are into lists. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Parents, you need to be able to say those words. You need to be able to say those words. I don't know, but we can find out. I'm here for you. I believe in you. You did it. I'm proud of you. I trust you. I'm listening. I love just spending time with you. Keep trying. You can do it. Jesus loves you. As parents, the words that you have the hardest time saying are the words that you didn't hear as a kid. I've seen that time and time again. The words that you have the hardest time saying are the words you never heard as a kid, and it's time for you to break that cycle in the life of your kids. Let them talk. Let them talk. The words that you give a child, the words you give a teenager, have the potential to welcome a conversation or shut one down. You need to remember that. You need to be mindful of that. The words you give your kids can either open up a dialogue or shut it down. And if you want to be effective at making the words that you have count in the life of your kids, in the life of your teenager, you need to develop, and I need to develop, good communication skills. We need to ask really good questions, and we need to be intentional about the way that we listen. And we need to kind of show this excitement and this joy about learning what our kids tell us. that we get really excited and are motivated and we're just like, wow, that's so, we're just invested in what they share with us. And we have to make sure that we don't overreact when we hear the things that we didn't really want to hear. We just don't overreact. We need to be steady and consistent. And we need to welcome those interruptions. Regardless of what you're doing, you need to communicate, hey, you can interrupt me and you can talk to me. And the more you can do those things, the more the kids and the teenagers in your life will talk to you, and that's a good thing. Because your kids need to be able to talk to you whenever and about whatever. And the words you give them can open up that opportunity for communication or communicate you don't want it or welcome it. One last question. What are the phrases that you remember most? What are the phrases as an adult, or maybe some of you are in college? What are the phrases that you remember most? When you look back at your life and when you look at your experiences as a child, what are the words, what are the phrases that you remember the most? The words that you remember the most, the words that echo in your heart, the words that echo in your mind, whether positive or negative, those words that you heard shaped the way that you see the world. Those words that you heard shape the way you see yourself, the way you see other people, the way that you see God. And as a result, those things impacted the choices that you made and are making, and those decisions impact the direction your life has taken and will continue to take. As I shared with you a couple of weeks ago, I grew up in a single-parent household. My mother left my family. My father left my family when I was 4 years old, and I grew up the majority of my life never having a father to teach me the things a father should teach his son. And I grew up most of my life not hearing the things a father should say to his son. And so that's been a difficult part of my journey, and many of you, sadly, can relate to that. That you as an adult, you as a parent, you as a father don't know how you should or shouldn't do certain things because you've never seen it modeled. And that's been a hard thing for me, but thankfully, when I married Lisa Summers, I hit the jackpot. Because not only do I get to have sleepovers with my best friend for the rest of my life, I also married into an incredible family. I have an amazing mother-in-law who I love dearly. She is a tremendous woman of faith, a woman of grace, and I just love getting to know her more and more. I have two beautiful, intelligent, wonderful sisters who are hilarious, and I love spending time with them. I have two brothers-in-law that I endure because I'm just kidding, they're great guys. I have some nephews, but I also inherited, for the first time in my life, a father. And a father figure in my life, which is something I'm still getting used to. It's a relationship, it's a dynamic that I sometimes still don't know how to manage and still don't know how to live with or live in. Because I've never had it, I've never experienced it. I've never had someone like Alan Summers who invested in me. A dad who poured himself into me, one who challenges me and questions me and listens to me and believes in me. I've never had that. And so it's been hard to get used to that and figure out what that relationship is and how it works in my life. But a couple of years ago, when I was approached by the advisory team about the idea of me succeeding Alan as lead pastor of the church and having those conversations, I got to be honest with you, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see that ever happening. I couldn't see that ever being a reality in my life. But he could. And he did. And his words over time helped me believe and helped me see. His words of support, encouragement, just continually investing in me and pouring into me helped me to see the direction that God was taking my life in. Helped me to see through the fog of fear and through the fog of self-doubt and insecurity, and through his words over time, he helped me to see where God was taking my life. In the same way, you are making history in the life of your kids. You're making history in the lives of the kids that are in your circles of influence, whether you're in a classroom setting, whether you're in the middle school ministry, whether you're in Bridge Kids, whether you're a coach. Your words over time have tremendous, tremendous influence. And the words that you choose to give a kid, give a teenager, is going to influence the way they see the world, the way they see themselves, and the way they see God. So when you say something this week, make sure you say it in a way so it matters. That you say it in a way so they see that they matter. Because the way they see, what you help them see will impact the decisions they make, which will impact the direction their life will take. Words matter. Words matter, and friends, we are losing our marbles, whether we like it or not. So this week, make them count. Make them count.